Hi everybody and welcome to the video and live streaming show. My name's John Lacey and I'm joined as always by Sam Proof. Today on the show we're going to be talking about setting up some basic scenes for a solo stream in OBS Studio. So we're going to be looking at how you can have a start and end sequence, how you might like to appear on camera, sharing a screen or potentially sharing a game as well, and also what you might like to do in the event that you do need to step away from the stream for a moment. So we're going to be doing all of that. Some of you may know that I stuffed things up this morning, so this is kind of our second attempt at going live, but I think I fixed the problem now. So thank you for your indulgence on that one. But if you are watching live, do that hashtag team live thing that I'm so fond of. And if you're watching live later, well, if you're watching the recording later on, you can go hashtag team replay. But Sam, now that we're actually streaming to the right places, how are you? How's your week been?
Good. Admit things that people don't know happened. No, I'm good. We had some time as a family to do some non-chaos related house fire things. Some just like relaxing mental health stuff. So we're just getting back into the swing of normality and getting ready for the kids to go back to school and Amanda to go back to work and life to resume. So it's been a nice quiet week for once. How's everything with you?
I mean, technical issues aside, I think everything's going pretty well with me. But let's check in with the chat. So Saeed's saying that he survived
Yeah,
another week and saying hello from Germany, and he's been all
nice.
over the place and playing with alpacas and all kinds of fun things. Hello to Claudio, who's watching from Thailand. Tech Troublemaker is in the chat as well. Yeah, so it's one of those classic things that, Tech Troublemaker Roy is saying, I thought it was a solo show based on the topic. Hey, everyone. Probably based on the thumbnail, and the thumbnail creation has sort of
Yeah.
bane of my existence. And I did 3 different versions of this, and I'm not particularly happy with any of them, but we need to move on at some point. So, yes.
Yep.
And Claudio saying it's very early over in Thailand. So thank you so much, everybody,
That's
for
yeah.
joining us today. I know we have some people who are OBS users in the chat, and Stefan is saying lagging so much and no sound, which is not great. Is that everybody's experience? Let me know in the chat. We'll try and figure that out. But I'm going to assume we're still going. And let's get stuck into the topic today. So, I mean, obviously there are some people in our chat that use OBS Studio. There are some people that don't. And I guess in some ways you can take these ideas and apply them to different types of software. It will depend a little bit on how what kind of software you're using as to how much control you have over these things. But yes, let's get stuck into it. So again, in terms of starting and ending sequences, Sam, what do you think's the benefit of having something like that built into your stream?
Sure. Real quick, other people have confirmed that they don't have any lag and they can hear fine. So that is Stefan having an issue on their own. So yeah, when we talk about sort of a starting sequence in live streaming, traditionally it's going to be something that either has like a countdown to when you might be starting the live portion of the stream, or even like a playlist where you can highlight some clips of previous streams and things like that. Benefit here is really just to kind of, I think, is twofold. You have a little buffer time of like being live. So depending on the platform, notifications might go out to those people that are following or subscribed to you. It lets them kind of wander on in so that you actually have more than just one person watching you. And it also gives you, as the streamer, a little bit of time to do some last minute troubleshooting, double check that the stream is actually running where you want, sound is coming through, things that we probably could have benefited from today, and things like that. So yeah, I think it's a nice addition. Whether or not you do like a 5 minute, a 1 minute, or like an hour starting soon stream is I think dependent on both personal taste and the platform specifically. I've seen a bit of all of those, and I don't particularly have any insight onto where it makes the most sense to have 1 minute versus 1 hour of a starting soon. And I have a feeling that the The longer version is really just for people who are really, really big and have that massive following and want to wait for, 10,000 people instead of 100 people to show up. So that
It's
might take
interesting you
some
mention that because there
insight.
was a time, even with this show, that I had so much anxiety about whether you use 15 seconds of music, 30 seconds, or 1 minute. And then I actually went on LinkedIn, which Stefan is actually reporting as a problem, and
Great.
it's always a problem for various
It's
reasons.
always
But if you're
LinkedIn.
watching over there and it's not going too well, join us on YouTube. Um, so I guess I watched somebody who had a solid 10 minutes of audio
Yeah.
running before they started. And I got to tell you, I only had 10 minutes spare, so I saw none of the content at all that day. So I'm personally not a big fan of that. But I guess, especially with platforms that unfortunately have a lot of lag built into them, like Instagram Live Producer, we know is notorious for that.
Yes.
Sometimes having a start screen will just let you know, like the minute you see Instagram has seen that you know you need to press the go live button, and that's where you work from. And when I started doing live streams, I would often say the last thing I wanted to say, and I would hit the stop button straight away. And the problem with that is that the thing I'd said often hadn't reached my audience yet, especially with my
Yes.
older, slower internet. So again, if you
Right.
can build something into the start or the end screen, it's a good idea. I know a lot of people are very big on those countdown timers. I don't personally use those. Yeah, well, I mean, everyone's probably seen what I do on this show. Is that I have some music. It's actually coming from the Rodecaster Pro. I use a plugin called the ASIO plugin, which basically just lets me bring in individual tracks from the Rodecaster, including the sound pad that music is coming from, as its own audio source in OBS. And the great thing about that is, if we are having technical problems on that scene, which we kind of did this morning, although I didn't realize at the time. If I'm muttering to myself, if I'm a little bit anxious, that's not going out live. So that's really really good. So I do have a number of different things happening on that scene. I've got the video thumbnail that's sort of animated a little bit. I've got the wave visualization happening there as well, and it just a bit of visual interest. But again, I guess the thing that Sam said, which I think is worth calling out again, is you can just have a straight up video, and that
Yeah.
videos will be supported on most of those platforms that don't give you as much flexibility as an Ecamm or an OBS Studio. So that's definitely a thing that you can do. Let's just check in with the chat. So Saeed says, I even use an intro scene with a countdown and some visual effects to give people 2 minutes to set up their stuff, and me a moment to take some deep breaths. Yes. Saeed, I saw Saeed comment on a post about getting ready for, how long it took to get ready for a video call. And, apparently you sometimes need to add extra time for crying, depending on the subject matter. So that's
Right.
definitely something you can do. So again, I must admit, Sam, I don't know that I've seen a solo stream from you in a little while. Like, you seem to
True.
keep it pretty casual. Have there been different times where you've tried different things in terms of a start or in sequence?
Yeah, it really depends on the show. When I'm just doing sort of like a me hanging out talking kind of thing, I don't generally have any kind of start or stop. I just randomly go live and I'm like, let's see what happens. But when I'm doing a more sort of planned out show, like the Cute Avalanche cat cam chats, previously, it hasn't been quite that way since the move and stuff like that. I actually had some very complex, like, things happening where, since it's 24/7 stream, there's no distinct, I don't want to have like a countdown on stream that takes over the front page and is like an hour of like, well, there were cats, but now there's this thing. So I have like some timed prompts that go into the chat and show a banner on screen that's like, hey, we're going to be doing a chat in 24 hours. Hey, we'll be doing a chat in 4 hours, chat in 1 hour. At that 1 hour time, because I am using OBS Studio, I'm able to bring up just like a dynamic banner, takes over just like a lower third worth of the bottom. That does have a countdown with a little message that says, cat chat starting at whatever the timer is. And then we do actually have like an intro sequence that I manually trigger when I'm ready to like go live. So that countdown will run. When it hits all zeros, it goes starting soon. And then I'll come in, hit the Stream Deck button for an intro, which plays like a very brief video. I think it's like 10 to 20 seconds. And then I have on-screen prompts that take me through sort of an opening monologue where I hit the same beats every time. And that's like a 1 minute kind of thing. When I used to do some of the stuff for Mob Crush, like the zombie board game show, we actually had a full screen countdown. And in OBS, there's a great plugin, or actually it's a script, not a plugin, which is called Advanced Timer. There's a couple different timers. Advanced Timer is the one that I like because it gives you the option of both count down or count to a specific time. So I'd be like, I'm going live at 10 a.m. I could just put 10 a.m. there, and I could turn this timer on 2 days in advance if I wanted, run a 2-day timer, which I would never do, but you could. But yeah, so we'd have the big timer on the screen, and we'd have a playlist of videos from previous streams happening. So yeah, that's kind of the few things that I've done in the past. And then for the outros, for the most part, Cute Avalanche, it's just me saying goodbye. Like some of the Mob Crush and the zombie stream, there would be sort of a 1 minute, just like, thanks for watching, see you next time. It's mostly a static screen.
And I must admit, like, especially for the end screen, when I'm thinking about YouTube, that's often the place where for the last 15 seconds, I'll probably want something that's designed with some blank space incorporated so that I can have the related videos or the subscribe to the channel or, a playlist that we might want to send them off to. So, I mean, those are all really good things. And I am curious, like, for those that are watching in the chat, like, if you do go live, or even if you do something like Saeed does in Zoom, like, do you have any kind of a particular opening sequence? I know I've seen people sort of dancing for the first minute of their show, and sometimes that's live, sometimes that's pre-recorded. It's often a good idea, especially if you know the content of the show, that you can give people a bit of a preview about what's coming up and sort of tease some of the content that's coming up as well. Saeed mentions that outros are a great place for calls to action, so that's definitely true. And again, you'll see what we do at the end of the show if you hang around long enough, but I mean, we have sort of QR codes for our respective websites and a bit of text and stuff there. But anyway, I kind of, again, like the thing, and I've already explained this, I probably shouldn't go into too much more detail, but the thing that I'm very fond of is sort of having that little bit of music, a little bit of animation, not worrying too much. And the thing is, I could potentially be on camera, even with my mic muted at that point, but often it's a time where I'm already pretty stressed and I'm already sort of clicking 15 different buttons just to make sure everything's working okay, like this morning when it wasn't. So, it's kind of up to you what you want to do there, but I think it's worthwhile. It's a great place to sort of set some expectations about the vibe of your content as well. If it is very serious and formal, or if it's very real, laid back and funny, like, you can let people know in the first, 30 seconds to a minute about what they're about to experience. So I think that's definitely worth keeping in mind.
Yeah. And I think, like what you said about the way you utilize the outro for YouTube, it's really important to note the difference in how platforms handle what happens after your stream is over. Whereas like with Twitch, it does save a VOD just like YouTube, but besides changing the description, there's not much you can do with it. But with YouTube, you can actually go in and you could trim the ins and outs. You can add, like cards or info mark to it. So it is good to take those things into account. And like I said, great place to put those CTAs within those cards or whatever. So also along those lines, letting people know in those CTAs when you're going to be live again.
Absolutely. And Said mentions that he uses a pixelation effect, which is an OBS plugin for his
Yeah.
camera in the intro, along with music, and he's sort of unmuted for that time. It is,
Yeah.
and Said sometimes does this funny thing where he will sneeze, and his entire camera will become pixelated, which is hilarious, and
Nice.
I never get old. It never gets old. All right, we're gonna come back and talk about actually featuring you on a scene, in a solo scene, in just a moment. This is the video and live streaming show. Thanks for joining us today.
We are constantly training our cats every interaction that we have with them.
Mm-hmm.
So when Johan would get on my counter before, this is 10 years ago, before I was the cat expert that I am now, Johan would jump on the counter. What was the first thing I did? I'd say his name, Johan. He loves that. That's a reward for him. He said, you just said my name. I would go over to him and I talk to him and be like, you can't be on the counter. Johan loves when I talk to him. Ding, that's another reward for Johan. I'd pick him up and put him on the ground, but I didn't want him to think I was mad at him. So when I'd pick him up very nicely and kiss him on the head and say, I love you, but you can't be here. I'd put him on the ground. I had just done 3 things that rewarded him for being on the counter. So I was encouraging him to continue doing that.
And that's a segment from Sam's podcast, Just Kitten Around, which you can learn more about over at cuteavalanche.com. Mercury is definitely in the microwave right now because even my chatbot is not playing very nicely at the moment. But yes, head over to cuteavalanche.com. You can learn more about that one there. Let's talk about actually having you on camera. So, there's a good chance. I know there are some people that don't appear on camera. They do all kinds of weird and wonderful things in that regard. But let's talk about actually showing up on camera. So, Sam, what do you sort of recommend people keep in mind when they're creating a scene that is just literally them on camera?
I mean, if it's just a full screen of you on camera, I think, what's most important is to first start with the lighting. So if you don't have great room light, you may want to try and post up near a window. If you're going to be doing daylight, you don't want direct sunlight hitting you. Some, like kind of what I have, which is a little off to the side diffused, although I also have a light in front of me. There's a lot of great YouTube tutorials on some simple 3-point lighting structures you can take a look at, which give you just the basics. It's good enough to get you through. And then, we want to keep in mind what else is on screen, backgrounds and stuff like that, and try and keep it not too cluttered, unless that's specifically what you're going for. If you're doing some kind of hoarder stream, yeah, and in general, you want to either. John and I obviously have different camera framings, but I think those are the good choices to make. Is either sort of this crop to your shoulders and up, or slightly lower, but somewhere around those lines. You don't want to get too far out, you become this just little tiny thing. So unless you're doing a dancing stream where that is, a full body might be required, having a very large face on camera, not just having a large, but on camera, I think is very important to make a connection with your audience.
Yeah, and I guess sometimes it can be really tempting to want to be, a small face in a large frame, like. And frankly, that's something I had to get over when I started streaming, because I just didn't love seeing myself on camera, and that took a long time to sort of get over. Business Growth Ready is saying that head and shoulders seen only if you forgot your pants. Yeah, I mean that's that's definitely something to keep in mind. Yes, and this is a great thing. So when I was on camera years ago, I had a small desk lamp with a low wattage bulb to shine on my face, and I hang a cloth behind me to hide all the junk. I mean, that's, in some ways,
there you go.
There are
That's
all kinds of opportunities to be quite scrappy. And when I started, I actually had this LED lamp that I could just position so it was pointing directly at me. The problem with that was, if I had a meeting that lasted an entire hour, like my eyes were just burnt by the end of it by looking into it. So now I've got some more diffuse lighting, but it's certainly something to keep in mind. Saeed mentions too, I think you should always have one scene that is clean and shows your face as large as possible. Maybe include a small frame or something similar. Avoid too much distraction.
Yeah, I think that's a good chunk of advice. I mean, also, I think, work with what you have. And, we've said this time and time again, video is much less important than audio. So as long as you've got some good audio going, you can, take some hits on the video quality until you can make it better.
And I must admit, I think we might be having a little bit of connectivity issues today. So just bear with us.
Yeah.
It's one of those, I kind of almost refer to it as Lacey's Law, that I try not to talk about the importance of audio quality, because the minute I do, my computer will humble me and default to a webcam mic somewhere. But it's definitely something, it's a good idea to produce the best quality that you can. So again, what I kind of wanted to do today was have a second camera to show you how I do this. This is probably a discussion for another time, but I physically couldn't get the camera where I wanted it to be without appearing on the other camera that I'm talking to you from right now. So I'm not really going to demonstrate that in the way that I hope to, but maybe I'll make some content about that on the channel another time. But essentially, let's just go over to my screen share. There's a static image of me. But what I wanted to sort of call out is, and I might even just get rid of this one for the moment. If you do want to incorporate, and let's just duplicate this for a moment, and I'll say scene 2, because why not? All right, so if you were to actually bring in a proper video camera here, and this, it could be a video camera which is going into a sort of a capture device of some type. It could be a webcam as well, but what we want to do is actually go up to the sources, click on the plus sign, and find the video capture device. Give it a meaningful name. Again, I'm probably not going to do that today just to save some time, but it's a really good idea if you can name your sources so you know what they actually are. You can go in and grab this whatever from the list. It's interesting because I could grab the virtual camera, but I think that would get very weird very quickly. So I'm actually just going to pretend that this is the one I'm using. And again, because it's not actually set up, it's not going to do a great deal. But the thing that I want to call out is that the other thing that's worthwhile checking is just the resolution. So if it doesn't sort of appear properly, and again, it's not going to do it here because I don't have a real camera. And I think my other camera is actually frozen. So that's great. Just the joy of, I might just go back to this scene for a second, and I'll stop sharing. And in fact, Sam, I might even get you to just talk a little bit about, some of the things that we might want to consider here while I fix this on my end. Yeah, I mean, for you I am, but yes. Anyway, that's fine. I think I'm back anyway. So, all right, cool. So yeah, I mean, okay. It's always a problem to actually do some of these demonstrations live, and I'm running 2 versions of OBS, and it was probably always going to be a mistake. But again, I guess the thing I kind of want to call out here, and again, let's just talk about it conceptually, and if I need to make videos about this later, I can. Obviously, if you look at Sam and I, we're doing 2 different things here in terms of our backgrounds. I've literally got a green screen behind me 24/7. There's nothing good behind me. There's nothing worth sharing behind me. So, I mean, even if it wasn't a green screen, I would probably have some sort of material background just to separate me from all the... It's literally sort of the back of a door and the side of a bookcase behind me. Like, it's nothing worth showing on camera. So what I do is once I actually go in to add my video capture device, I right click on that, I go into the filters, and I add a chroma key filter in there just to get rid of the background. And again, like, the thing about that is that it doesn't cover my entire background. So I also go in and crop my camera frame a little bit, which is why I have this hanging microphone. And I've made my peace with it, but every now and then someone will come out of the woodwork to tell me that they absolutely hate it. And, if that's a stumbling block for you, my content probably isn't for you. So just keep that in mind. There are a bunch of, and some of these are AI powered and background removal tools. I've done an entire show on that in the past. I don't love the results I get with those. It's a
No,
bit
they
like
can
when you're
be
in a
janky.
Microsoft Teams call and you use
Yeah.
their sort of virtual background options. If you move too much, if there isn't enough contrast between you and the background, like parts of your head will be chopped off. It never knows what to do with the microphone in frame. It's very hit and miss. Say it's saying hashtag team floating mic. Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I had somebody on LinkedIn sort of say, look, I'm going to need you to do that differently. And I didn't have the energy to even reply, but Saeed defended me. So I appreciated that.
Yeah.
So
No, I
obviously,
have
like
no
Sam,
problem with the floating mic.
you've literally
Yeah.
just got you in the frame, and that's perfectly fine. That's a legitimate option. And again, especially if you have more control over your physical space and you can
Yes.
design and curate things a little bit better, I think that's a perfectly good option as well. So, those are just a few different options that you can take in terms of having yourself within the video frame. And I guess the other thing too, I just want to call out, and again, I don't think I'm going to be able to demonstrate that today because I just don't have a spare camera. If you do want to treat your same video capture device in different ways, there's this really great plugin, and I think I'm just trying to remember what it's called. I'm sure Saeed would know, but I'm sure it's here as well. Source Clone. So often what I would do is I would have, I would just bring in my camera as is, as its own thing. I would clone that. I'd remove the background. I'd add my own colored background in there. And then I could probably even do that again. So if I wanted to take what you're looking at now and maybe put it in a masked circle and put it into one side, I could certainly do that with the source clone. And I just want to call that out because outside of certain specific video capture device cards, if your video is being used somewhere, it probably can't be used somewhere else. So what I see a lot of newbies do is they'll try and add their camera to a scene, they'll create a second scene, they'll try to add it again, but they don't sort of introduce the same source again. They try to start from scratch and then they get confused why they can't use it. So what you want to do is if you go to the sources, you hit the plus sign, you go to the video capture, and then you just, instead of creating a new one, you actually select a little radio button that says add existing, and then just select it from the list. So you can do that. But again, if you do want to make a lot of changes, you want to have different filters on different versions of this, the source clone plugin is a really great option.
Along those lines, and not to confuse people too much, you can also create, as I do, sort of a camera scene that has the scenes, the cameras I'm going to use for me, right? Like just big full screen cameras or whatever it is. Maybe it's the cameras I'm going to use for a board game. And then you nest those into another scene and you'll be able to like modify them individually. But also, FYI, Mac handles all of that differently than PC.
Okay, that's good to keep in mind. And I guess like we're going to talk about sort of having guests in a future show, but I just want to call that out too because what you're looking at right now is actually there's a scene in OBS that is me with my background removed and this color. There's a scene that is just Sam. I bring those in as nested scenes. And in addition to the nested scenes, I'm also using the Move plugin, which is so much fun. Once you start playing with it, you'll never be able to stop. But essentially, I can do things like this, and I'm actually not changing scenes. I'm literally just rearranging things on the same scene, and it does all the calculations for the animations. You don't need to worry about that. Your computer handles all of that. You literally just say, "Hey, this is what I want it to do." And whatever sort of treatment is applied to that, it will move to the new one, and it's so elegant, and it's literally free, and it's amazing, and I'm kind of obsessed with it. And we need to do an entire, well, I don't know if we can do an entire hour on it, but we'll definitely need to cover it more in the future.
Yeah, I don't know if we're if either of us have enough like knowledge on Move because it just does so much.
And it can sort of animate different properties too, and that's one thing I'm sure you can do, but I haven't quite figured it out. That you can sort of apply different masks in an
Yeah.
animated form. But Farquad, who's watching over on Twitch, says the cat tree in Sam's background is very on brand.
Yes.
Yes, so Sam literally
There's
has
no cats on there.
cats in that room. So Saeed's offering to do 2 hours on the Move plugin. Hey, if you can
All
set it
right.
up and it's not a
Bring 'em
time
on.
I'm normally asleep, I will definitely join you for that one. But let's keep the show going. So we're going to talk about sharing your screen in just a moment. This is the video and live streaming show. Thank you so much for joining us. Hi, I'm John Lacey, and in Build a Presentation Muscle, I want to talk about finding your voice, refining and sharing your message, using tools and technology to share that message, and looking after yourself as a creator. And that's a promo for my podcast, Build a Presentation Muscle, which you can learn more about over at johnlacey.com. So this is the video and live streaming show. Let's start talking about sharing your screen and, you know, potentially doing some sort of demonstration. So, you know, there are all kinds of different reasons you might want to share your screen. And I guess, like in my world, I don't play a lot of games. I don't do a lot of game capture, but that is a traditional use of OBS that probably hundreds and thousands of people use every single day. But I guess, you know, in terms of actually doing this, I know we have a few different options. So I guess it's probably worth unpacking those first. And I've got so many tabs open. I'm just trying to find my notes. So we've got the display capture, we've got the game capture, and we've got the window capture. So I don't know anything about the game capture at all. But I don't know if you've ever used that one, Sam. Have you?
Yeah, I've never actually used it. So I don't have a lot I can say about it. It mostly works the same as like a display capture. It's essentially, as far as I understand the technical of it, it's bringing in the game almost as its own video capture device. And I believe, unless they've updated things, it's using Siphon. I don't know really beyond that what that means, but I imagine that passes over some different kind of data than just a simple display or monitor capture, window capture do. Some games, from what I know, you do need to use it for. A lot of it can get away with just doing a display or window capture.
Nice. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to my sharing screen over here. So again, you know, I'm going to create, in fact, I'm going to keep duplicating this just because I like that background and I don't want to go and find it again. But I'm going to rename this one and we'll call it screen capture. All right, so I'm going to get rid of that video capture device because I'm not using it and I don't want to tempt fate again. But essentially, when it comes to sharing a screen, you have those few options. So if you go down to the sources, you hit the add source, you've got the display capture, which essentially is capturing everything on a given screen. So often that's the one I will normally use, and that's kind of the one that I'm using for what you see right now. I won't be using that for what I'm about to demonstrate though, but we also have window capture. So again, that will capture a specific window, and depending on the way an individual program is created, that may or may not include sort of subsequent dialog boxes that pop up. So you do need to be a little bit careful, and it's probably worthwhile actually going in and testing this first. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go to window capture, and again, I could give this a more meaningful name, but for today's purposes, window capture is fine. I'll click OK. It's already sort of offering to bring in different things. And again, I don't want that one. What I actually do want is, I think it's this one here. So this is literally just a web browser. It's Google Chrome, and it's open to my website. So now I've got the ability to capture that window. I can bring that in. I've never actually played with these capture methods. Maybe, Sam, we can talk about that in a second. The window match priority. So if you start up OBS in the future and you're specified a particular window, the name of that may change. It may not be able to find that automatically. 9 times out of 10, I just find it's easier to go into the properties and just find it again before you go live or you have a meeting. there's the ability to capture audio, which used to be sort of its own separate source and still is a separate source if you want it to be that way, but you can also do that there as well. You know, it's great in the sense that it should only capture from that particular program, although you will see here it's technically in beta. You've got the ability to capture the cursor or ignore that, so that's great as well. So I've got that there. I can do that. I should mention too, I'm sharing this via my little teleprompter. It's got a slightly different Windows resolution than the rest of my setup. I have 4 separate screens here on this computer, and it's still some days not enough, if I'm being honest. But what I might do, I'm going to right click on this and go transform, and then I can, you know, maybe just fit the screen. And it'll take up more of the space. Again, if I wanted to maybe crop out that scroll bar, I could hold down the Alt key and drag that in and get rid of that. You know, I can sort of resize that and do whatever I want. And if I were to actually go to where this is live, I can sort of come in here and I can scroll down and show you more of this. Again, my poor old website probably needs one hell of a makeover, but it is what it is. So that's something that we can do over there. So that's really worthwhile keeping in mind. I'm just going to go back to Sam. Make sure he's still with us, that I'm not boring you too much. So, like, obviously, that's one way of sort of, you know, sharing your screen in OBS. Again, 9 times out of 10, I would normally go for the display capture and just share everything on my screen, but also be incredibly mindful about what's on that screen. The worst thing you can do in a meeting is accidentally share a private chat where you might be referring to other co-workers.
Right.
So just be deeply mindful of that. Yeah, so Saeed mentions too that for screen sharing, showing or hiding the cursor can be useful.
Definitely.
It depends on whether you want to highlight your clicks in a tutorial or simply present something. Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Yeah, and along those lines, if you are using OBS, there is a plugin that will do all of those great things, like zoom in to sort of your cursor area and I believe give sort of like a ping kind of effects and things like that, which I'm sure Saeed knows the name of because I have forgotten. But it's probably just like OBS Zoom screen share, something like that. I don't remember. But yeah, that exists as well for those of you who do want to do some sort of tutorials of like screen shares.
Absolutely. Okay. So I guess, you know, if I go back to this screen share thing, like literally here, you will see that I'm still within this scene. And because I'm chroma keyed, you know, you can see the background behind me. It's often a good idea to also think about, you know, maybe hiding yourself on camera, because if I wanted to talk about these controls in OBS here that are directly behind my head, you can't really see what I'm talking about. So often that's just a question of actually finding your camera and just toggling the visibility. And you can set up buttons on your Stream Deck to do that. You can set up keyboard shortcuts to do that as well. But I kind of wanted to get back to that thing that Sam mentioned earlier. So, you know, in terms of the nested scene, that's the button I'm looking for. Okay, yeah, so if I come in here and I actually go to my sources and I go to the plus sign, I can actually find a scene. And in this case, I'm going to actually select my first scene, which in a perfect world would be me on camera and some sort of backgrounds, but in reality here it's a static image of me. So what I can do now is I could literally just sort of crop this and I could, you know, bring this in and, you know, resize this. So when I'm cropping, I'm holding down the Alt key on Windows. I don't know what it is on a Mac because I haven't used the Mac in millions of years, but I'm sure someone in the chat will probably be able to let me know. Okay, so, you know, I could have that there. Again, yes. If I had the advanced mask installed on here, which I don't think I do, I could come in here and actually add a mask as well. So in some ways, that's quite a nifty thing to do. So I could have like a circle around this. I could have a love heart. I could have a diamond. I could do whatever I want. So potentially that's also a sort of a useful thing to do. And again, I wish I had sort of the extra camera ready to go to show you this in real time, but I hope conceptually that makes sense. Okay, so let's just go back here. All right, Sam, is there anything else that you think is worthwhile talking about? I know Saeed mentioned that the plugin is called Zoom to Mouse. So yes. That's one you might want to check out if you are doing those tutorials.
Yeah, that's the one for sure. Yeah, I would say, kind of two options that we didn't really talk about that also kind of play into this are that OBS does in fact just has a source that is a browser source, which might be all you need because you can then go into that and interact with it. And again, you don't have to worry about accidentally showing those vacation pictures on that display. Um, and equally possible is if you just want to bring a second computer in, you can run that into a capture card, bring that in as a video capture device as well, which gives you the same sort of effect. And again, you have the same concerns over that, acts as if it was a display capture. So you do need to pay attention to what's available on that. But then, for some reason you need a second person to help you operate things, that might be a good solution.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great call out. So I'm going to just delete a few of these things in this scene, and let's just have a look at the browser capture, because I think that's another great option, especially like in this example where I'm literally just using a website. So if we go down to the sources, hit that plus sign, find the browser option here. I might just call it website. Click OK. So we can sort of give this a URL. So in this case, I will go johnlacey.com. I don't know if that's going to update. It's probably not going to update until I actually hit OK, but that's fine. We can change the width and the height of this. So again, if I know that I want it sort of 1920 by 1080, that can be a great thing. You can actually add custom CSS, which is way outside of the scope of what we're going to talk about today. But we can also refresh that when it becomes active. Page permissions. So read access to OBS status information. Got all kinds of different options there. I'm not particularly concerned about that right now, but if I go OK, you'll see that I've got that here. So this is the website, and it's interesting because it has rendered a little bit differently to what it actually looks like in Chrome. So in this case, I probably would want to do a screen capture rather than this. But the great thing about this now is that we have this interact button. So if I click interact, I can sort of I was hoping I could interact with that in more detail, but I guess maybe I can click on something? No, it's not even letting me do that. Okay. Well, I must admit, this is not something... Okay, it is working. It's just incredibly slow. So again, I don't know if that's necessarily the thing that I would do, given that I've now just tested it, because even the ability to scroll this is not giving me a lot of joy, if I'm being honest. So I probably wouldn't use that, but where I do use that is for things like the chat comments. So we have a thing called Social Stream Ninja, and that's the thing that I'm sort of bringing these comments in, and that's all sort of powered by the browser sources as well. So say it says, I also find it effective to have your face in a box on the left and on the screen sharing slightly smaller on the right, I should say. So that's interesting, and I instinctively go the opposite direction. So
I think that Saeed uses Zoom and like meetings and stuff like that a lot, and I think this makes sense in that environment. But if you are someone who's using like Twitch or YouTube to stream, where you have traditionally a video player on the left and a chat room readout on the right, it makes a lot more sense to have your picture in a picture of your face camera down in that bottom right corner, where they can go straight to the chat and back to your face.
I mean, they're all creative options. So I mean, you can try out whatever you like, and I guess the thing that I see a lot of people doing is that they'll use a lot of graphics to sort of have borders around things and different textures and colors, and that's brilliant. I must admit, I'm just kind of a minimalist at heart, so I don't do a lot of that at the best of times, but it's certainly available to you if you want to do that. But let's go away, and we'll come back and talk about actually setting up an away from the keyboard option. So we'll do that in just a second. This is the Video and Live Streaming Show.
Hey gang, if you need help running a live stream or optimizing your YouTube channel, get in touch with me. I can help you get set up with live streaming, operate your stream, strategize your YouTube channel, and so much more. Hit me up at samproof.tv, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yes, so if you want to get in touch with Sam, head over to samproof.tv for help with all those live production services. Okay, this is the video and live streaming show. Today we're talking all about setting up some scenes, some basic scenes for a solo stream. So we've talked about start and end sequences, having yourself on camera, having yourself, with some sort of screen share. And now I want to talk about sort of be right back or away from keyboard or technical difficulties scenes, because sometimes things will happen and things will go wrong, but also, and again, this I feel like this sort of underpins some personality differences between Sam and I, because Sam will go live for like 7 hours at a time, and I'm like, I'm here for half an hour or an hour. I've got very specific content to get through. So I don't plan to leave my computer for the duration of a show. But again, if it was more of a social thing, if it was a longer time period, you might want to do that. So I guess in some ways, I have a couple of different thoughts about this, and I'm really curious to hear what Sam says too. But like in some ways, I think it's worthwhile having some sort of content built into your show that you don't have to be physically present for, even if that's just to give you 30 seconds, a minute to catch your breath or have a drink or whatever. But there is also that possibility that you will need to sort of move away from the keyboard. And I guess, you don't necessarily want to leave your camera on while that's happening.
Right.
You kind of want to entertain your audience while you're away. So how do you use many of these kinds of scenes?
Traditionally I have like just a be right back message that shows up on screen. It's just like a giant BRB that takes up like 80% of the screen. So even if I just wanted to leave it on camera, I could. Which, I've, depending on the show that I'm doing, I have done many times. I did develop an entire game just so that there was an active thing people could be doing while I was away. And that actually took on its own life and became something that just the show is almost about for a lot of it. So there was that as well. I know, I think it was Farquad or maybe Saeed had mentioned like just putting your chat on screen, which also I've done back in the Mob Crush days for those BRB screens. Although now if you are a Twitch user, kind of goes against their terms of service. So you do have to pay attention to your platform's specific TOS. I've never really done like a technical difficulty screen, because in general, if you've gotten to that point, you might not even be able to trigger it. so I've never really messed with that. And I think when I go back into doing my own stream, which I'm hoping to do next month, I will incorporate like a playlist on my my sort of BRB screen, so that there is something more interesting than a big message and chair.
Sure. So I guess, I mean, there have been times even on this show when like there was a few weeks, and Said was a guest at the time, where my camera just wouldn't play nicely, and at some point I did sort of have this static image of me on as a replacement for my camera. And I guess, you can combine all kinds of things to make that sort of interesting and interactive. But I mean, obviously, you can bring in colors, you can bring in graphics, you can bring in videos, even animated GIFs and text. I think in some ways it's just about setting expectations, because people could be joining you freshly at any point during the time that you're live. So, it's a good idea to sort of maybe go in there and add a few things. It's probably a good idea to actually incorporate some of those branding elements as well. So, I mean, I haven't really, like I said, because I don't really anticipate on being away from my computer, I don't do this a lot, but I mean, potentially it could be just a matter of sort of adding some text here and say, be right back, and whatever it happens to be. Like, it doesn't have to be too elaborate, but I think it is, like, in some ways it's really just about making sure that people understand what's happening, because if a whole lot of nothing is happening, they might not want to hang around for that. And I mean, you can do all kinds of stuff with this. So I don't know, and I'm curious, because I know a lot of people in our chat don't necessarily go live in this fashion. So maybe it is more for people that are on Twitch who are sort of going going live all the time.
Yeah,
But
I think
again,
it is definitely a longer stream thing that is needed. If you're doing a very specific hour-long show, I mean, we do the promos, and that might be just enough for the typical person to be like, I'm just going to need a breather. I need it. Like, I personally, I need to drink on camera. I can't stop that, but eating on camera, I'll take a break for. So, if you're that person that's like, I don't want to drink on camera, having a dedicated promo you can run to for like just like a second to be like glug glug glug, and then you're done. It might be helpful for those of you doing like a half hour or hour long stream.
absolutely. And like, I see lots of people do like almost telethon type things where they go for like 12 hours. And it's like,
Yeah,
you definitely got to have some stuff planned for that, because you can't,
definitely.
at least you shouldn't be in front of your computer for that duration of time. So, keep that in mind, and whatever you need to do is all good. But I guess it would be good to maybe see some more examples of this perhaps in the future. But okay, so I guess, we have kind of focused very much on just a single person streaming. And I think in some ways that's one of my favorite uses of OBS Studio, because you can bring in external guests, you can bring in external chats, but those things aren't built directly into the platform. You do have to take a few extra steps, and we're going to cover how to do that probably in a couple of weeks' time. But again, I think it can be really useful. I guess the other thing that's worth underpinning too is all this stuff that we're talking about in terms of the scenes is also things that you can bring to the virtual camera. So if you are just having a meeting with your work team, or you're doing video calls or sales calls, it can be a great way of doing that as well. And, that way, the thing that Saeed said in a recent session of his is that, the great thing about that is he can go to any kind of video chat software and not have to figure out where the screen share button is, because it's already happening directly in the OBS scene.
Yeah.
Okay. Saeed writes, blurring the camera and adding some text can works well for me. It keeps something moving live in the background, and also works well for taking a break in a Zoom meeting. Yeah. And I know some people use sort of textured videos and animated GIFs and stuff. The only thing I would say about those is just make sure they're not too large in file size, because if they are, it can slow them down and it can look a little bit glitchy. And in some ways, the thing that should be a really elegant background sort of becomes a bit of a distraction when it starts glitching. And again, like, I'm just naturally a minimalist in terms of streaming, so I'm a big fan of having less rather than more. But we are beginning to sort of wrap up the show, Sam. So if people want to learn more about you, what's your content, all that good stuff, where can they go to do that?
Yeah, head over to samproof.tv. You'll find all of my social links at the top left there, and follow me. They're pretty much in order of how often I use them. And if you didn't get enough cats today, because this one just showed up, you head over to cuteavalanche.com, where we're currently running a 24/7 playlist of our past featured fosters, as we're not fostering currently. And yeah, that's all. Look for me coming live this fall.
I feel bad that this is now obscuring the cat, because I kind of feel like it's probably the most exciting part of our entire stream. But if you want to catch up with me, you can head over to johnlacey.com. I've got the podcast and articles and social links. Come and find me on LinkedIn and YouTube especially. But yes, I hope you've enjoyed that show. Thank you for putting up with some of my technical difficulties. And it's, we talk about the importance of having a go live checklist, and candidly, the thing I forgot to do was actually just update the streaming key. So we were streaming in the wrong place for a little while. So, it happens to all of us. So I'm just going to roll with it. But
Farquad actually reminded me, that is something I actually wanted to bring up when we were talking about the BRB. I had two things that I thought of as John was saying. There's some really great streamers tools that don't require the streamer to be on screen. One is Words on Stream, From the same company, there is a drawing game called Gartek, which is like a Pictionary, and those are games that will automatically run if you hit some of the settings. The other thing I wanted to say, and I believe it's just an OBS script, not a plugin, but I haven't looked at it in forever. For those of you doing any kind of retro sort of content, or you just like this as a gag, you can find an OBS script that just does that old DVD player logo where it just bounces around the screen. So like that's a nice nostalgic screen break for a BRB.
And I guess that's the thing, the Move plugin that we alluded to earlier, like you could just have a very simple 4-step filter that would just take something, it could be an image or text, and just move it around the screen until you tell it to stop.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something that you could do. I haven't heard of Words on Stream, so that's really interesting. Chocolate Quilts is agreeing with a lot of things we're saying, although I don't know specifically when they were coming in as to what they were, but thank you. We appreciate the affirmation nonetheless. Said likes the idea of a quiz or a game playing during AFQ away from keyboard. Sorry. Yeah, I think that's a great thing. So just something to keep people amused or entertained. It could be cheesy jokes. It's funny, the plugin that we use for the chat, it gives you the ability to sort of have some dummy ones, and it literally came up with, "Hey Dad, did you get a haircut?" "No, I got them all cut." So you could have cheesy dad jokes in there as well if you wanted to. But all right, well, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll be back at roughly at the same time next week. Hopefully we won't have any glitches at the beginning of the show, but thank you for your indulgence today. Don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you happen to be watching this. We really appreciate it, and we will talk to you again soon. And of course, we do have some cats in the background, so that's always a good way to end the show. So take care, everybody, and we'll talk to you again.